This is a replay of Let's Talk Nigeria on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, making Nigeria better, one conversation at a time.
Calabar's number one. Number one. Music, sport, and talk radio. Let it hit 'em.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sparkling 92.3 FM.
Hello, welcome. It's time for Let's Talk Nigeria, and I'm inspired to start with this song, Great Nation by Timi Dakolo. I like to say that in spite of what is happening in Nigeria, remember that Nigeria is you, and you are Nigeria. So as much as we want to say what we want to say, sometimes I see myself in that realm. But please and please again, we should try as much as possible to always say the right things about the country Nigeria and be hopeful for something better. I believe, honestly, that Nigeria will get better. Nigeria will be great. Nigeria, it's not a tall dream. It's not something that we've been told since we were growing up, right? It's something that will be. But we have to tell ourselves that we will be committed to electing the right set of leaders that we have judged their character, we have x-rayed their characters, and we know that these people have integrity of heart to actually take this nation where the nation needs to get to, right? We have the power. When it's time for us to cast the vote, we should cast it well, so that at the end of the day, we should not start complaining, okay? Having said that, welcome to the program. Okamaka Richard Bassi is still my name. And today, we've been having this conversation since Tuesday. From the president declared a state of emergency on Tuesday night. He did not just declare a state of emergency, he removed the elected governor alongside his deputy and the members of the State House of Assembly, thereby collapsing both the executive structure and the legislative structure in River State. And he cited the reasons for that. And he, according to his speech, he invoked a section 305 of the Constitution. We've had legal practitioners come on board to help us interpret and make sense of that provision of the Constitution. Yesterday, we also established that the president, yes, has a right to declare a state of emergency, which is subject to ratification by the National Assembly. And we also established, I remember Barrister George Akeki said something, there is a provision in the Constitution for how an elected governor should be removed. But that's not what we're talking about today. We want to talk about what happened yesterday on the floor of the both houses of the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Reps. Before that time, there were several letters, several calls on the National Assembly to do the needful. But I want to believe they did the needful by their own assessment. This morning, we have Barrister Fred Nzeakori join us on the conversation to help us make sense of what happened, because we read that it's a 2/3 majority that can ratify that decision taken by the president of the country. Good morning, Barrister Fred. Thank you for joining us. Hello, can you hear me, Barrister Fred?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning to all the listeners.
Thank you. All right, so yesterday we saw what happened. We saw that the approval that Nigerians were waiting for, or the disapproval, either ways, that the National Assembly only gave a voice vote. But first of all, let's establish, how should the National Assembly have, conducted themselves in terms of either approving or disapproving the state of emergency declared by the president? Let's start with that.
The Constitution of Nigeria 1999, as amended, provided at section 11, specifically subsection 2 of section 11, that the National Assembly has the authority to take over the legislative actions of any state where the state assembly is incapable of legislating for the good governance and for the development and well-being of the state. And the circumstances that could make a state legislature not to be able to deliver on its mandate are varied. Some are man-made, some are political, some may be natural. But whatever the circumstances are, provided the state legislature is unable to discharge its function, the gap will be filled by the National Assembly. That is as provided in section 11. So ordinarily, if the legislature in Rivers State was unable to discharge its function, section 11 would have been invoked for National Assembly to take over such function from the state. The second intervention Assembly can have in leadership of any state is as provided in section 305 of the Constitution, the same section that Mr. President relied upon to declare a state of emergency. Subsection 3 of section 305 clearly outlines circumstances under which a state of emergency can be declared. Again, some may be as a result of act of war or threat of war, natural disaster, or some other happenstance that will not allow the state to be run smoothly. In which case, there is need for an extraordinary measure to be put in place towards maintenance of law and order and for the protection and security of the people of the state. In which case, the governor would ask Mr. President to declare a state of emergency. But in a situation where the governor does not ask Mr. President and the situation continues unabated, in which case the governor of the state has lost the capacity to lead the state, then the president on his own, suo motu, can declare a state of emergency in that part of the country. Let's take, for example, the state. And such declaration of state of emergency would have to be accentuated by the two chambers of the National Assembly. That is, the Senate and the House of Representatives sitting in session. If they are sitting in session, that means they must either accentuate, that is, either support or disapprove the declaration. Within 48 hours of such declaration, the Constitution also envisages that there may be time when the National Assembly, possibly they are, in which case they will be given up to 10 days. The idea is for them to be recalled from their various locations on vacation, for them to come and attend to a matter of urgent national importance. And that means they will be given 10 days to reconvene and give legislative input to the declaration of the state of emergency. And in order to give legislative input, the National Assembly must, the Constitution said, shall be at least give such input by 2/3 majority of the member of National Assembly. That clause, 2/3 majority, is where the whole issue lies.
Okay.
Now, in what happened yesterday at National Assembly, the Senate and House of Reps gave their consent to the declaration, which means they gave their support to the declaration. The question now is, did the process of giving support follow the laid down procedure as enshrined in our Constitution, whereby at least 2/3 majority of members of both chambers must give their concurrence? It is now arguable whether what we saw yesterday clearly explained 2/3 majority, because the challenge is, how did you measure or how did you determine the 2/3 majority? Can you determine 2/3 majority via a voice vote? And nobody has explained that question or answered it correctly or claimed that you can determine 2/3 majority via a voice vote. Let us not forget that the Constitution also provides that National Assembly has two ways of adopting their resolution, either by a voice vote or by electronic voting or by raising of hands, in which case direct counting of votes. It's either you do that electronically, because the National Assembly complex has been rejuvenated and renovated such that I believe and I trust that while they did that renovation, they would have imputed in the Assembly the capacity for them to, through the touch of buttons on their various seats, recall that the seats have been named. It was not like that before. Every person who's has the name of every person has now been pasted on the seat of that legislator.
Okay.
So that if you vote, we know where you have voted. And in every serious democracy, that for matters like this, that is of very crucial national importance, the vote of the legislator must not be muffled or hidden under the general yea and nay, but must be clearly itemized and counted. We expected that National Assembly should either do their voting by raise of hand or the more electronic type that is more computerized. They do their use of the computer in the system of National Assembly, which is electronic voting. In the Senate, there are only 109 of them, if you include the presiding officer. If you remove presiding officer, there are 108.
Okay.
In the House of Reps, there are 360 of them. Remove the presiding officer, there will be 359. It is not a large number for their votes to be collected on a very serious matter as the issue of declaration of state of emergency. Like you said earlier, the idea of attacking the existing democratic institutions and structure of Rivers State has been very variously and seriously argued, and most thinkers and analysts have said that what Mr. President did was ultra-biased his powers as the president of the country. That means was unconstitutional for Mr. President to remove elected democratic institutions through the back door of declaration of state of emergency. And many people believe that Mr. President should not have adopted the Obasanjo approach of
Hello?
2004 and
Hello? Hello, Barrister Fred? Okay. I would have to reconnect with Barrister Fred that the network has gone bad. Okay. So we have been speaking with Barrister Fred Nzeakori on what played out yesterday on the floor of both houses of the National Assembly. And if you have listened attentively, he's been able to make sense of that. He's a man of the law, so he has a better understanding and can better interpret what actually played out, right? A matter as serious as declaration of a state of emergency, should it have been approved by a voice vote? And how do you determine the persons that were part of the voice vote? How do you determine with a voice vote? That's the question a lot of people have been asking. Hello, Barrister Fred, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
All right, you were saying something before the network interrupted.
Yes, that many people and analysts expected that Mr. President should not have adopted an approach by Chief Olusegun Obasanjo's government in 2004 and 2006 when the declaration of state of emergency swept off the democratic institutions of governance of the state. Because when Chief Obasanjo did that, it was when Darie, the then governor of Plateau State, was removed under a state of emergency, similar to what happened in Rivers State. So Darie went to court, and the matter was adjudged up to the level of the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said in very clear terms that the president had no power anywhere under the Constitution or under any law for that matter in Nigeria to remove a democratically elected governor of a state.
Okay.
In any guise, apart from the are set out under the Constitution, which essentially has to do with impeachment.
All right.
And that no state of emergency should remove any governor.
All right, Barrister Fred, let me come in there.
And that still stays up to today.
Let me come in there. You just mentioned what the Supreme Court gave as their judgment. After the president made that declaration on Tuesday, on Wednesday, we saw the Attorney General come out to defend the position of the president. He is the Attorney General of the Federation. He's a son. He should know what the Constitution says, and he should know this particular judgment. So why will he defend the position of the president when the Supreme Court had given a judgment against something like this in the past?
That is why we keep arguing that the Minister of Justice, that is ordinarily a political appointee of Mr. President, should not be the same person as the Attorney General of the Federation, who should be the Chief Law Officer of the Federation that will advise on issues like this. Now, the same person that is the Attorney General is now the Minister of Justice, defending the government that appointed him. In very clear terms, That is why when issues like this happen, you will now understand why we argue that the office of the Attorney General should be separated from that of the Minister for Justice. So the Minister can now play politics while the Attorney General will uphold the law. Now there is a clash between politics and law, and the politics in the mouth of the Honorable Attorney General and Minister for Justice has overridden and overshadowed the law. And that is why he is more interested in defending the government he's serving than in defending Nigerian jurisprudence. He should know, and he knows, that he decided to play along with the government. Even if, of course, you don't expect him as a minister to criticize the presidential action in public. If he had to do so, they would do that in chambers, privately. And if Mr. President convinces him that he was going to make the declaration, then there's nothing else he can do about it, other than to come and defend. But he knows that there was a Supreme Court judgment on this matter. And that was why in 2013, President Goodluck Jonathan, where he declared a state of emergency in Obe, Borno, and Adamawa, during the raging era of Boko Haram, no political structure of the state involved was dismantled. The governors were intact, the legislators were intact, but he now declares state of emergency with a view to increasing the level of security in the state, because he needed to do so that he could move the military beyond the normal regimental assignment. He could also dismantle some local state laws that were possibly sympathetic to the Boko Haram insurgency. He could do some other extraordinary things to ensure that there is protection of life and properties of the people and enhance security in the land. That was the whole essence of declaration of state of emergency. State of emergency cannot be declared with a view to dismantling democratic institutions. It is never done. And in all parts of Nigerian constitution, there's no place that supported what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did. In all laws of Nigeria, in the entire laws of the Federation of Nigeria, there's no place that supported what he did, because that was akin to a military coup d'etat. You can only appoint sole administrator to run a state under a military junta and not in a civilian democracy. So what Mr. President did is completely unconstitutional and completely against the tenets of our provisions of the Constitution and the tenets of democratic establishments of Nigeria. And it is surprising that National Assembly had to give it in, and that was why many people held to hope that National Assembly will do the needful and correct the error by Mr. President. But instead of doing so, the now infamous rubber-stamped Assembly has become something more than rubber stamp, but has become a talk house of the executive. Somebody described the National Assembly as an assembly of executive defenders of Nigeria.
Okay.
And it is honestly very, very worrisome and very disturbing. We hoped that they could have used the opportunity to correct the error, but instead of correcting the error, they joined in the bandwagon of the rape of Nigerian democracy and the entrenchment of unconstitutionality and the dismantling of the democratic institution of a state. And I can tell you that it should be challenged.
All right, thank you, Barrister Fred. Now, for the benefit of this conversation and this listening, when we use the word rubber stamp, let's even give a meaning to the word rubber stamp, or what it means in politics. From what I have here, you have that rubber stamp is a person, organization that gives automatic approval, authorization to the decision of others without proper consideration. And it is also a political metaphor referring to a person or institution with considerable de jure power, but little de facto power, one that rarely or never disagrees with more powerful organizations. So I had to bring that because Barrister Fred used the word rubber stamp so that you can have a contextual meaning of what we're talking about. Barrister Fred, thank you very much.
In order to give a practical meaning to the context that you have just explained, the Senate President, His Excellency Dr. Goodwill Akpabio had said open to Mr. President that any bill or any request that will come from the executive will be approved by the legislature. He said that openly, and Nigerians shouted that this is not what it should be. In as much as we expect strategy, positive synergy between the legislature and the executive for the smooth running of the country, but we also expect that the doctrine of separation of powers should be given meaning so that checks and balances will be enhanced and the corrections will be made where there are errors. As in this case, there was manifest error of judgment by the executive, which was hoped to be corrected by the legislature, but the legislature gave it a nod, and gave it a nod in the most appalling way, because what they did was to hide under the voice vote to approve such a very sensitive and such a very important matter of so much national importance as that of removal, not because of declaration of emergency alone, but removal of democratic structure of executive and legislature in an important component part of the country.
All right.
Of Rivers.
All right. Thank you, Barrister Fred. Thank you so far. People, we need to go pay some bills. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. And if you have something to say, you surely have the chance to say that. This is Let's Talk Nigeria. Stay with us.
Coming right back. Just grabbing more chips and salsa. Sparkling 92.3 FM, Calabar.
This is a replay of Let's Talk Nigeria on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, making Nigeria better, one conversation at a time.
We talk everything. Health, education, finance, sports, transportation, agriculture, politics,
entertainment,
people and power on Let's Talk Nigeria. Let's Talk Nigeria. Every day of the week from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Only on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar. Your radio, your charm.
All right, Let's Talk Nigeria continues this morning. You can join in on the conversation by calling the numbers 0812-723-7060 or call 009-230-0022. Hello.
Good morning, Okamaka.
Good morning to you, UB Furniture.
Before we start anything, I will say God bless you and God bless your guest this morning. Your guest made me to understand that when such things happen during Obasanjo tenure, when the present president now was the governor of Lagos State, that Supreme Court disallowed that judgment that the state of emergency was not supposed to take place, and for you were not supposed to remove the city governor that was elected. Now my question is that state Supreme Court, do we have it in Nigeria today? That is number one. Number two, your introduction, you said that we should still put hope in Nigeria. Remember, there was a caller during newspaper review that said, we normally say, youth, you are the leader of tomorrow, but the old people refuse to leave office. He now asks you, when is he going to be a leader of tomorrow? Now, my question is this. When the people that are supposed to leave seats for the young people to rule refuse to leave seats, And when the people that are supposed to do the right thing, when something happened that time, they did the right thing, they refused to do the right thing. Which hope the youth is going to have in this country that you say we should have hope in this country? Like somebody like me, I does not have hope in Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, UB Furniture, I'll still stick to what I said. Please, don't give up on Nigeria. Don't give up on Nigeria. I'll still reiterate that. Hello.
Hello, Kamaka.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Kamaka. I listened to your guest in the studio. One thing that is very cardinal is that he mentioned that resolution can be by voice vote, it can be by raising of hand, it can be by electronic voting. He didn't tell us if voice vote is unconstitutional, if the National Assembly decided to go on voice vote, whether the severity or not severity of the matter. If there was a voice vote, that's a resolution. And I will say something, he just gave us a very wrong, I stand to be corrected. The judgment of January 20, 2006 on the issue of Darie and the federal government, I will read. Delivering judgment on January 20, 2006, a 7-man panel of the Apex Court, led by Muhammadu Uwais, the former chief judge, struck out the case on jurisdictional grounds. He said that the first and second plaintiffs did not authorize this suit, and no instruction was given for filing same at the time of when it was filed. In reality, the Apex Court did not delve into the substance of the case to resolve the constitutionality or otherwise of Darie's suspension. So when you say that the Supreme Court gave judgment and say it's unconstitutional, I didn't know where you get that. Please, you can fact check. You know, this full time we can fact check facts. I have fact checked this even yesterday when this issue came up. And I realized that the Supreme Court never decided on constitutionality of or otherwise of the removal of Darie. So I don't know where he got what he's telling us that the Supreme Court decided on that judgment.
All right, the Chancellor.
That doesn't mean you know everything. Thank you very much.
All right, the Chancellor. I'm also fact-checking that, but thank you for bringing it to my notice. I'm also fact-checking it. Okay, let's see if we can reconnect with Barrister Fred on this, and there are other things that he needs to also help us to make sense of. You can also send your message to the WhatsApp number 009-230-0022 and use the SMS box too. Barrister Fred, can you hear me? Hello, Barrister Fred?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Now, a caller had called in and then he raised concern about the Supreme Court judgment on Joshua Darie's case during the Obasanjo's era. And he said something, the Supreme Court did not delve into the substance of the case about the constitutionality of these suspension of Darie from office as a governor. But the Supreme Court did not go into that matter. Please help us understand this. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
What does the caller mean by the assertion that the Supreme Court did not delve into the substance of the matter? So I believe that is the caller that should be able to help you understand what he said. I don't know what he said, but I know that the Supreme Court made a definitive pronouncement that a sitting governor, an elected governor, should not be removed via the state of emergency, because it is alien to our laws. Whatever you do in constitutional democracy must be by the rule of law. So removal of the governor does not have any place in democracy at all, except if the entire governance structure, the entire democratic structure was torpedoed via a military coup, which of course we said that the military is an aberration. Any military coup is illegal. It's only when it succeeds that the beneficiaries who now seize power begin to give it legitimacy. And that is why every military coup, even after its success, will still be treated as illegitimate by the rest of the world, by the international community. But the ones who have succeeded will continue to hold on to power and try to legitimize their actions. So you can imagine when it is done by a civilian democracy in the guise of declaration of state of emergency. So it's alien to our laws. There's no way Supreme Court would have supported it. If anybody feels otherwise, then the person should be the one to explain, not me.
Okay. All right. Now that the National Assembly has given this particular judgment, right, what's the way forward? Is there anything that this suspended governor can do if he wants to do something?
The way forward is for him to approach the court. We operate constitutional democracy, and this is a civil rule where the rule of law reigns supreme. The Constitution is supreme over and above all other laws. So the Constitution has not supported what the President has done. Neither has the Constitution supported what the National Assembly has done by accentuating the errors of Mr. President. So what is held for him is to go to court. For whatever it is worth, it is important to once again, he has a basis. The Supreme Court declaration on Joshua Darie is a precedent that he will rely on. And he will further have recourse to the provisions of our Constitution and then go to court. The only worst they can do is to delay the process. But this declaration is for 6 months, but because it is possibly renewable, it is important that he goes to court. And that is the only best thing left for Mr. Fubra to do. If the members of the House of Assembly
the National Assembly.
Onion, the House of Assembly, yes. The members of the House of Assembly of the state wash their onions, they too should go to court. So that's their right as provided for by the Constitution.
Okay. A caller asked the question when you made that reference to the Supreme Court judgment during the time of Darie, that do we still have the same Supreme Court that we had then now that can give a judgment that is solely rooted in the Constitution?
The Supreme Court does not change. It still remains the apex court of the land. The participants, the justices of Supreme Court will come and go because they are all human beings. They have their time, their age of retirement. When they retire, they bow out from the bench. But the Supreme Court remains what it is. And that is why even when you have a joint committee of the Privy Council, which was a precursor to Supreme Court during the colonial era, some judgments of the JCPC, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, still guides our pronouncements of Supreme Court today, still guides our jurisprudential activities today. So it does not change. The individuals, it's not like you say in local parlance, soldier come, soldier go, barrack remains, Supreme Court remains, justices can come and go. But whether the federal is speaking in a manner that whether we still have the kind of integrity of the Supreme Court that we used to have then, whether we have it today, is arguable. His guess is as good as mine.
Okay. So we have a message here from Albert. Albert says, I have listened to your guest. I have seen that he's not totally correct. Let's first of all look at the meaning of the state of emergency. It says the state of emergency is a situation of national danger or disaster in which a government suspends normal constitutional procedures in order to regain control. In the case of Rivers State, we all can see danger and disaster in the political establishment and the vandalization of properties. Vandalization of properties? Anyway, that's what he said. That has to do with national economy. Hence the declaration and the suspension of the political establishment in Rivers State according to the meaning of declaration of emergency. Barrister Fred.
Well, the writer has exposed his nuances. Clearly wants to side with the government. But that does not mean that he will rewrite history or rewrite vocabulary. What state of emergency is what it is, and it was clearly spelled out in the Constitution. If the writer is trying to say that by seizing a regular turn of events that democratic institutions will be sacked, then the writer needs to go back to school and to gain more understanding of the issues we are discussing.
Okay. At this point in time, because we're out of time and we need to move on to the next segment, which is Africa Check. I think let's see if we can do we have more messages on this? Okay, this one is okay. I've taken it already. But thank you, Barrister Fred Nzeakori, for joining this conversation. We are Nigerians. We will just sit and we will watch how it will unfold. And from what the National Assembly did yesterday, the House of Representatives, to be precise, they said they made 3 amendments, and one of such is that the sole administrator will report to the National Assembly and not the FEC, and also the fact that the president can review the period of emergency to a shorter period than 6 months. That's some of the amendments they made and all of that. Let's see how that pans out as we go into the coming days, coming weeks, and coming months. But thank you, Barrister Fred, for your time this morning.
Many thanks.
All right, we draw a curtain on Let's Talk Nigeria, this particular one, and we move on to talking issues around fact-checking. We have a claim this morning. It has to do with health. Please do well to join in. Stay with us.
Number one. Music, sports, and talk radio. Let it hit on.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sparkling 92.3 FM. Just relax.
Hey, what's up, hello?
Radio sounds better. Radio sounds better.
I love it. You guys are so great.
With Sparkling FM 92.3.
This is a replay of Let's Talk Nigeria on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, making Nigeria better, one conversation at a time.
We talk everything. Health, education, finance, sports, transportation, agriculture, politics,
entertainment,
people, and power. On Let's Talk Nigeria. Let's Talk Nigeria. Every day of the week from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Only on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar. Your radio, your charm.
All right, welcome back. Thank you. It's time for fact-checking. Remember, I would always say, always put on your fact-checking lens. All right? If you see something, fact-check something before you believe something. It's really cardinal because we live in an age of information overload. And not just that, people are taking advantage of that to, put out information that are either not right or distorted and all of that. But there are other information that are authentic and true. This morning, we want to fact check or look at a claim that has been fact checked by Africa Check. Recall that when the year started, the president of America came out to put a stop to the U.S. Funding of some cardinal things, especially around health in Africa. That's the USAID, freezing and all of that. And someone made a claim. Let's look at the claim that this person made. Okay. So Aproko Doctor, you know Aproko Doctor, right? He came out to claim that Nigeria had the second highest number of people living with HIV in the world. But in raw numbers, the country... okay, I'll go back to this. So this is his claim, right? He made this claim when he was advising the Nigerian government to do something to ensure that people living with HIV are well taken care of because of this aid cut by the U.S. government. We have Mr. Orwell with me on board to help us make sense of this. Mr. Orwell, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Kamaka.
Okay. So, Aproko Dr. Chinonso Egemba is someone we all know, we respect, and all of that. He made a claim,
Sure.
and you checked it. Please help us understand this.
Okay, so I mean, you've already given the context, in the court and all that on AIDS. So he was essentially, made that tweet on X, saying that essentially trying to paint like the situation to say Nigeria had the second largest number of people living with HIV, and so with this that with the court is they don't get the required treatment, then of course there will be a higher cause for concern, right? To the possibility of higher infection rate and all of that, and of all this was a tweet that was very well debated. Some people actually within that tweet also questioned the statistics that he used. And of course, to put in context, I mean, he has 2.3 million followers. Right? So it's a claim that's unqualified. So the question really is to answer is whether Nigeria has the second highest number of people living with HIV. And well, it's a long tweet, and then we were able to pick out two key claims. So this is one of them. So we have to look at the numbers, right? What is available statistics on HIV. Now, considering that this is a claim that sort of has to do with comparison, looking at Nigeria being the second highest in the world, we have to look to the data, published by the United States and United Nations said HIV initiative, which is called the UNAID, right? And every year they do publish, global data on HIV. For the latest one, which was published last year, covered the year 2023, and that year, globally, there were 39.9 million people living with HIV. And then from that report, they said 2 million people living with HIV in Nigeria, right? And based on that, we have to then look at the, what was recorded for other countries and the number of cases, and from all of the data that we went through, South Africa still maintained the highest number of cases with 7.7 million people living with HIV. India 2.5 million, okay. Mozambique 2.4 million. So based on this, Nigeria coming in with 2 million is actually number 4. Right? We're in the 4th position, not 2nd position.
right? And we did find some other things about that data. Also noting that there wasn't anything recorded for like 29 countries, in China, including US, Russia. So but at least with what is available, Nigeria is fourth and not second in the world. Right. So moving quickly to the second claim that he made, which we also looked at, it says that Nigeria currently has close to 200,000 new HIV infections every year. Now, I mean, this is even more scary, right? If this actually the situation, but this claim is also not correct. So I think part of the argument, he actually then posted a screenshot of a headline that says 190,950 HIV infections per year, right? And on the world. That was the headline of an article that was published on the website of UNICEF.
Okay.
And that article was dated back to 2015. Right. Obviously, speaking to experts, 10-year-old data definitely is completely outdated.
Okay.
And cannot be relied on. But current data actually puts the figure for in 2023, right? The UNAIDS data estimates that Nigeria had about 75,000 new infections in the year 2023, which is the most recent data, and that clearly is less than half of the 200,000 that Procodoctor claimed. So, obviously, this is a case of an exaggeration of the situation of ground. And in fact, we'll try to look back data and really the last time that Nigeria had about 200,000 new infections, HIV infections in a year was way back 1998. So the situation is a lot better than he presented it, and obviously this points to what we talk about, how people use and present statistics. We can completely mislead, and you can imagine if policies are supposed to be made based on these numbers that are put that he put out. Obviously that would be misleading, right? So, the claims are sort of an exaggeration of the situation. Obviously, the situation needs attention, but we also need to get our numbers correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Now, what has been done to that tweet?
We don't have such arrangement with X as it is. So the best we can do is to all sort of put it out there that this claim is not correct for the people who have probably seen it and believed it and shared it. For them to at least get their numbers correct.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Orwell. While we know that this claims made by a Procodoctor is incorrect, but also at the same time, Nigerians need to be cautious and careful, and the government also needs to pay attention to this. But let's always get our stats correctly, and that's why we're also asking for investment in data collection, because imagine this data as far back as... If we had current data, this would not have been the case. But all the same, thank you very much, Mr. Orwell, for the work you're doing. Thank you, Africa Check. We really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, people, this is where we bring this conversation to a close. We bring this edition to a close, and we bring the week to a close. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation and being part of the Sparkling Morning Show from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and this is Friday. Thank you very much. It's been a swell time. I have really enjoyed myself at the same time analyzing issues affecting the Nigerian state. But all the same, I believe in Nigeria, and I want you to also believe in Nigeria too, regardless of what is happening. Let's commit to always, when the time is right, to get the right leaders on board. And we also believe that leaders that have the heart of people will emerge, right? And we also pray, like somebody advised, we also pray for our leaders to always do things that will be to the benefit of the people that have elected them. We elected you to go there to represent us. We have reposed our confidence in you. Please do not let us down. Ukamaka Richard Bassi is my name. God bless you.
Number one. Music, sports, and talk radio. Let it hit on.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sparkling 92.3 FM.